All right. Welcome to Be the Market Expert. And so I want to kick it off with this. This came out yesterday, and I think this is going to be conversation, whether it's agents that you're going to be having conversations with, and or it could come from your clients because news kind of like this does get around, right? Just like the NAR commission lawsuit and all that stuff. So with what we had, the news got broke yesterday that we partnered with Stone Point Capital, as well as we have a new CEO. Both of those got broke at the same time. And as we look at this thing, I think this is kind of exciting. And I'll give you my thoughts on why I think it's exciting. Whether any of it comes to fruition is beyond me. But first and foremost, we just have to keep in mind that Gary Keller has, outside of him, Joe Williams, and Mo Anderson, those are the only three that I am aware of that have ever owned a piece of Keller Williams as far as KWRI goes. Gary Keller obviously owns the majority, followed by Joe Williams, followed by Mo Anderson in that order. And so when we've gone through everything that we've gone through, and think about this, the NAR commission lawsuit, we just did the TCPA lawsuit last year. At least I think it was last year. That all came directly out of Gary Keller's checkbook because we're privately held, right? Like we can be like, oh, it came out of KW. But at the end of the day, those three are the only ones that have ever put money into the company outside of, the $3,000 that gets contributed from the associates. And so with all that being said, and when we talk about scaling and the different things that we're looking to do, it makes it very hard, right? When we're talking about tens of millions of dollars just fighting those lawsuits, and then just thinking about keeping up with everything happening in our industry, Gary Keller needed a cash infusion. Hard stop. Like that's what this looked like. So Gary Keller still owns the majority of Keller Williams. He is still going to be in the same role that he has been in. And honestly, like he is like 68 years old. And so for him kind of, running this thing the way that he's been running it as more of a consultant, he's still going to stay in that role. So then we got a new CEO. So Chris right here that's pictured with Stone Point Capital. Chris was a acquisition by Stone Point Capital. And so with what Chris did, Chris was running a REIT. And so this REIT, I think it's called Broadstone Real Estate Access Fund, this REIT right here, $629 million IPO. So this is very cool. This is why I think this is cool. A couple things, like when we start thinking about like how can real estate agents make more money in different ways, I actually believe, while this is not put out there, but yet they also didn't deny it either, that this is going to access other ways for KW agents to make more money by partnering with one of these firms. Yes, we're going to be able to. This company has deep, deep pockets, right? When we're talking about Stone Point Capital has deep pockets. They own Lone Wolf Technologies, they own HomePoint, they own CoreLogic, they own Meridian. Like a lot of these companies, especially like Lone Wolf, majority of the CRMs in the United States are some kind of Lone Wolf technology. And then when we start talking about CoreLogic's literally tied into like every MLS in the United States. They have a lot of data. Very cool. That's going to give us an edge, especially as they start probably implementing some of these pieces into our technology, which I have to believe is going to happen. The second piece is when I think of these guys being as a REIT, they're investment bankers, they're doing stuff. I have to imagine that they are going to have exclusive things for Keller Williams to purchase into as real estate agents to create more wealth. I truly do believe that. I think this is going to be very, very neat. As far as business goes, as usual, it's business as usual, right? Like I don't think that there's going to be any hiccups that we're going to run into going forward. And when we look at like this company typically stays with who they partner with. They keep them. They don't sell them off for parts or anything later, which I think is like some of the things that people are like, oh my God, we're getting into a relationship with a venture capitalist firm. And when we're looking at this thing, they typically stay in relationship, just like Chris here with his company. He was the CEO for this company. They acquired the company. He stepped into a board of directors. And then when we partnered with Stone Point Capital, they said, hey, we know that you're looking for a CEO. You should look at Chris. Now, here's the thing. This didn't happen overnight. This wasn't this year, this stuff happened. This has been in the works for well over a year at this point. And Gary, we were on a call with Gary yesterday, and Gary was having the conversation. I was like, this wasn't the best financial deal for myself. Yet, I do think this is going to provide more opportunities for our agents in the future. And that's why we partnered with them. So that's this. I really just wanted to bring this because this, I think, is going to get more and more traction. I think if you go onto any social media right now that's agent related, there's going to be a lot of people, whether they're going to say Keller Williams is the best place to join right now because of this, or they're like, oh my God, venture capitalism is taking over Keller Williams. You guys are no longer independent. Jump. At the end of the day, we don't know what it looks like. We just know that they still own less than what Gary Keller owns. Gary Keller is still the majority. There's going to be a cash infusion into KWRI, which is going to be spent like it has always been spent on the agents to make us more successful. So I'm actually really excited for this. And we'll see kind of as this rolls out more and more what the opportunities are for us. Jumping into what we talk about, let's look at Resi Club. So it says inventory and key housing metrics. Here's what the state level inventory is telling us right now. So let's scroll down. Let's go to here. We'll look at this in Housing Wire, but we can see 2025. We're over a couple years, including 24, 23, 22, 20, 21. Well, not necessarily 20. 20 had more inventory, but it just kind of came off the board quicker. We're still lower than 18, 17, and 19. Let's scroll on down. 1 year change. So we're looking from February 24 to February 2025. 44% more. Yes, we're this square down here. We have 44% more inventory than we did in February of 2024. Guys, this is what we're looking at. This is the opportunity that our buyers have been looking for. Our buyers have been waiting on the sideline. We know this, right? And a lot of the talk was interest rates, cost of money. And yet, I think that what we're seeing, even in our top producer mastermind that we were talking about this, and when I was talking to our ALC, we're actually seeing more people that want to move raise their hand. It's not necessarily even the people that have some kind of motivating factor behind them, right? Death, divorce, right sizing, family, adding family, job promotions, transferring. Like, it's not even necessarily those people that are actually doing the moving right now. It's people that have been sitting on the sideline. They're like, we've been waiting to move, and now's the time. So with us having 44% more inventory on the market versus last year, that means that our people have options. And this is what we have to understand, right? I think a lot of times we look at it and we're like, oh my God, like the cost of money is super expensive for somebody to move. And yes, there are people where purchasing is going to be absolutely effective or affected. At least when we're looking at this thing, what we do know is that the migration moving in and the migration staying in Colorado, for the most part, they can afford it, right? We looked at the migration patterns coming in and out of Colorado, and what we have to look at is that these people, they are earning over $100,000 a year. Those are the people that are moving into Colorado right now. And so when we're looking at this thing, there's more inventory, there's more opportunity. The people that are selling, we don't know what their motivating factors are, but yet we do know that most of them are probably around a 3% interest rate and they're leaving it. So there's probably some kind of motivating factor. And yet we know that we have the ability to just put concessions in to start, which is pretty cool. Like, for anyone that's been around for a little while, you know that this is a brand new mechanism to us that we've never really done in like the last 10 plus years. And so as we're looking at this and looking to implement it and run with it, this is pretty neat. We can go in, we have the ability to say, okay, this home's been sitting on the market for a little while. Maybe we come in a little under. On top of that, we can go in and say, these are the concessions that we need to either purchase down a rate or whatever that may look like. And we have the ability to negotiate the compensation that we've agreed upon in our agency agreement, which we've never had the ability to do in the past. It was a whatever the MLS said, that's what we were accepting. Well, homes are sitting a little bit longer now. There's more inventory, 44% more than this time last year. And so, what are we doing to make sure that our clients understand, our buyer clients, that they're pretty much in the driver's seat? More inventory, more opportunity for conversations, more time to actually get down to the dining room table and have a discussion with both parties so that we can put together a deal that makes sense for everyone. Like, guys, this is super exciting. Then we scroll down a little bit further, and here it is from February 2019 to February 2025. Again, 7%. We have 7% more inventory right now than we did in 20. So as we're looking at this, 7%, 7% more inventory than what we would consider a normal market, right? Because keep in mind, the 2019 and before, that was not necessarily our gold standard yet. That was pre-pandemic, pre-low interest rates, pre-high interest rates, cost of money, and to where we just saw flat rates. And so 7% more inventory as we're going through means more opportunity. Now, we're not Texas, right? In Texas, we're actually seeing some interesting stuff. I don't know if anyone's following the rest of the markets, but Texas, what they're actually seeing right now is so much inventory is coming on the board that they're actually seeing lower rents right now because there's so much inventory out there because they were building. When we look at Texas and Florida, those are where we saw the biggest booms because of their cost of living. And now what's going to be interesting, especially when we talk about Florida, I don't know if anyone's been following what Florida's doing, but there's rumors that they're going to get rid of their taxes for their housing, right? So they're going through and they're looking to get rid of that state tax, which I think is going to be very interesting to see what happens there because they're going to have to make it up somewhere. So it might actually be the cost of goods. They might have a sales tax that they're going to have to put in there. But as they're going through and we're looking at this stuff, this could actually potentially put a bump for people moving to Florida. And who knows if we see less inventory at that point because more people are moving to Florida, even though everything that's going on with their insurance. So these are going to be the interesting ones to watch. Us, obviously, because we're directly affected because we're real estate agents in Colorado. Texas to see what really happens there because their market is super weird right now. And then Florida, even though we know that their insurance is going up, their property taxes could potentially go away. And if their property taxes go away, we'll probably see a lot less homes on the board. And it actually might impact people actually coming in because they might have to increase their sales tax to capture some of that money. So we'll just watch it. So here we go, Colorado, here we are. But yeah, let's scroll down a little bit. And then we're looking at this thing. Here's just Colorado. We are number 4 on the list. And you can see 15,000, 14, 17, 14, 7, 5 in 2022, 11 in 23, 12 in 24, 18,000 homes. This is active inventory in the state right now. So when we're looking at this thing, obviously, again, we're not Texas, we're not Florida, right? Like these guys, they have a lot of inventory. That's why we're the smaller dot of the 3. And then District of Columbia, that's almost cheating just because you guys can see this. And we don't know what's happening in DC right now either. DC, there was a lot of speculation, and I don't know if anyone's on Twitter, but you go into Twitter and you Google DC, you actually see that there's a lot of people speculating that the reason why there's so many houses for sale, at least percentage wise, is because of the speculation of a lot of people losing their jobs in Washington. So we'll kind of follow this and kind of see what that looks like going in the future. Then as we go in, here's what's interesting. Active housing inventory for sale month over month. Again, here we are. So we got District of Columbia, big percentage, low inventory, right? 2,700. I mean, that's not groundbreaking. Then we look at Texas, close to 120, Florida, close to 180. We got 27,000. So as we're looking, we are in the top 4 for inventory. And then we look at all this. These are all the rest of the states, right? And so just simple math, when we look at this, there's 5, 45 states, right? As we go through, that means there's 45 states where they have less inventory. Then we look at Colorado and we are top 4. And so looking through active inventory over month, we can actually look at this January's. Again, a lot of stuff we do is rear view facing. We can actually see just there's Florida. Let's go over. Let's change it to Colorado. There we go. So there's just your visual representation. So you can kind of go through, you can grab that. And so guys, if you were wanting to do anything with this, let's just kind of throw this in the chat right now. But if you're wanting to take any of this information, maybe do a social media post and talk about the amount of inventory that's literally in Colorado year over year. There's plenty of opportunities for our buyers right now. I think this might be a good social media post. All right. Tariffs. Let's talk about tariffs. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. And tomorrow, which is today, because this was yesterday, Trump confirms 25% tariffs on Mexican and Canadian imports starting today. Welcome to today. This is what's interesting about this. As we're going through, I think we got to look at this logically. And as we're looking at this, I think that we can come to a couple conclusions. Firstly, there are products that we import that we do need that are going to go up in price. And that's very real, right? And I think one of the things that impacts us as real estate agents is lumber, right? The cost of lumber is going to go up. Most of our lumber does come from Canada. We're going to impose a tariff on Canadian lumber. And that lumber is going to come through. We still need it. And we're going to be paying the prices. That's the real piece, right? Like we look at stuff like this, there's going to be products that we look at that we're going to say, no, we actually do need it. We're going to have to spend the money. And for the most part, what we don't know, but it could happen, is that there's going to be companies that are either going to eat it and or there's companies that are going to pass it on to their consumers. Let's just assume they're going to pass them all to their consumers. All right. Like, let's just say this. We need lumber. We need to buy houses. We need to build houses. Lumber's going to go up. We're going to continue to buy lumber until we can actually start going through some of our national forest, which, Trump has already ordered, start going through our forest. Now, on the other side of things, let's talk about Honda Civics. All right. Because I think that's really an easy one for us to understand. I haven't done this yet, but let's do this. So let's pull up a Honda Civic. I don't want to use one. Let's get a new one. Honda Civic. All right. We can go buy a Honda Civic Sport CVT. I don't know what that means. Seven mileage. It has 7 mileage on it. There's 7 miles on this thing. MSRP $27,800. All right, cool. So while it didn't talk about China, let's go through and they're going to go to a 20% tariff, right? So they are, we know that they got increased. So let's look at this thing. So let's go 27,800 plus 20%, 33. It takes it from $27,000 to $33,000. Not as big of a bump as I actually thought it was going to be. But yeah, what we do know is this. Honda actually said they're going to open up plants in the United States because this is what a lot of these other companies are thinking. Why in the world would you go and spend more money on this product and not buy a comparable product that's made in the US that's cheaper? And that's where it gets interesting because no one's in here, for the most part, no one's buying a Honda Civic saying that this is my ideal car. This is the car that I have to have. A lot of people that are purchasing specifically like a Honda Civic is because of a price point. And so what we're going to see when we're going through and looking at some of these tariffs is there are products that people can live without. And so what it's going to do is it's going to force them to come back into the United States with their plants, build so that they can get around the tariffs. It will create more jobs and will keep more tax money in the United States. That is the idea behind tariffs. Yes, there are products that we do not have in the United States that we will be impacted. And there's going to be products that we do have in the United States that are going to be more favorable to actually just purchase in the United States and walk away from the other ones. All right, let's switch this over. Housing Wire. As we do every week, let's talk about Housing Wire. Let's look at Logan Motoshami. And this was his Friday article. It says, do mortgage rates have room to drop lower? And he said, what a roller coaster of economic news so far in 2025 as we head into March. Many wonder, can mortgage rates dip even lower than we've seen since January 14th? And the answer is maybe. It says, since Trump won, we have said many times that the White House economic teams want to see mortgage rates going lower. So we're not going to talk about the 10-year yield. We're not going to talk about spreads, but let's talk about purchase application data. So far this year, purchase application data has been slightly negative, but it's performing between and better than last year. And so when we're looking at this, we've had 2 flat readings, 3 negative and 2 positive. Let's hit refresh. I don't know why it's not showing us our graph. There it is. So here we are. Here's 2025. We're still sitting above 2023. And we're sitting above 2024, right? So this is good news. We do want to see this. Obviously, we had a big spike and it came back down. And yet, this means that our people are getting more interested. It's no longer about interest rates, even though they are dropping. And we'll look at this. Home sales that are pending, 324,000, slightly below last year and slightly higher than 2023. So here we are. And we're not in 2022, but here's the thing. This is a very hard number to compete with, specifically because interest rates were still very low this time in 2023. So it'll be interesting once we get on this side of things over here to see where 2025 stacks up against 2022 and the rest of the data, right? Because it is higher interest rates at that point. We're looking at this thing. We got weekly housing inventory data. So we're looking again. We just looked at this on the last graph from Resi Club. 28% more. I think they quoted 25%. So they're just pulling their data from a little bit different of an area. And yet it's still more inventory. 2020, while inventory was flying off the shelf, it still had more inventory. 2019 had more inventory. We still want to get up here. 2019 would be our gold standard for what we're aiming for. We get to this inventory level, we're having more conversations. It's more of a win-win. We get to a balanced market. Balanced market's exciting, guys. Like, this is where we want to get. We want to have enough inventory to where sellers are still cashing in on their equity and they're still putting their home on for sale, as well as we're getting to a point where we're all coming to the table to where we have more affordability. I don't think home prices come down. Not enough to really impact. But as we're going through and going forward, I do believe that interest rates continue to come down. And then we're able to have more conversations. New listing data. Here we go. More and more inventory. We knew this. We just talked about it. We have more inventory coming to our markets. So here we are, 53,000 new listings week over week. I'm sorry, year over year last week. And then we're looking at 52,000 the year before, 48,000 the year before. So we're seeing more inventory hit the table. The price cuts. We're still seeing this, right? We're seeing people that are listing their homes on the market and they're swinging for the fences. And they are praying, right? They're doing the 3 Ps. They are placing the home in the MLS. They are putting the sign in the yard, and then they're praying it sells for their price point, right? Like, that's what's happening right now. And so as we're going forward and we're looking at this is very important why we need to price homes strategically, especially as we looked in Colorado, right? We looked in Colorado. We have a lot of inventory, 7 8% more over 2019 and 44% more over last year. And so when we're counseling our sellers, they have to understand that the competition is what's currently on the market. That's your enemy, right? That's the enemy equation that we're going to use. Is we're going to say, we're going to look around and we're going to decide, all right, so that and that is competition. Where do we need to price strategically to beat them? Because we know substitution, right? Like if it's like for like and it fits our needs, buyers are going to choose the cheapest home. They're not going to choose the second cheapest. They will always choose the cheapest home. All right, this is interesting. Jobless claims. We looked at this last week. It wasn't anything exciting. It had skyrocketed. We're going to get more data this week on where this looks like, because what's interesting is this isn't federal workers. All right. So federal workers have not been losing their jobs. This number does not reflect that. This number could get significantly higher. And again, while we're not rooting for this, conversely, what we do know is the higher this number gets, the lower mortgage rates will get. We're in an industry where we're unproportionately affected by stuff like this. And with our price point being as high as it is, we'll actually see more sales because of this. So while we're not going to go to bed and pray for this to happen, and we're not going to root for this number to go up, we do know the higher this number gets, they have to do something. It's no longer about inflation. It is about jobless claims. The jobless claims goes up. They start hitting the bell that there is need for alarm and for panic, because if this number goes up, then we will have a recession. That means that people are no longer spending money and they want to avoid that. All right. They want to, well, we know we've been in a real estate recession. People are still buying stuff, right? Like try to go to Costco or Sam's and go buy eggs right now. Like they're out and we know that they're expensive, and yet people are still spending the money. Yet we see real estate taking the biggest hit because we're talking about $3,000, $4,000 a month payments because of where the interest rates are. But people have no problem going on Amazon and going after the deal of the week, putting it on their credit card and having that and just making the minimum monthly payments. We are disproportionately affected from the rest of products. So it says we will have some Fed president speeches, manufacturing data, unit labor cost data, and a few more reports this week. But Jobs Friday will likely be a key after a huge move with lower yields. So Friday's the day. We're going to see what happens. But let's look at this. I went from January 1st, even though that's a holiday. So let's call it January 2nd to yesterday. Guys, here are the interest rates. They're going down. They're going down. Now, we don't know how low they're going to go. We don't know if tomorrow they could go back up. And yet, do our clients know this? Do the people that we are the real estate economists of choice, that we are in their ecosystems, do they know that interest rates are going down? We look at this right now. As of yesterday, let's look at this. Let's just actually go here. Let's go back. Here's your live. Let's look at live rates. Your live rates right now, your conforming 30-year 6.89, and then your FHA 6.54. So that stayed flat over yesterday, and we went down not even 1 basis point. Let's call it 1 basis point. I doubt it's that high. 6.89. So interest rates are coming down. Like this is the information that we should be getting out to our consumers. And this is pretty good. It's going down. It's a little bumpy, but nothing scary. Like when we're just talking that it's going up this low and down this low, this is what gives people confidence that they don't have to time the market. We want to see this thing as flat as possible. Yes, let's let it go down, rock and roll. But yet we want to make sure that we are having conversations. And here's the interesting thing. Maybe you do have people on the sideline.
right? Maybe there's some people that are in your ecosystem that are on the sideline saying, I'm going to wait till this happens. Well, this happens could be right around the corner. Now, if they say 5.5, maybe next year. Like, I don't think we're going to see anything that low. We're not going to see 100 basis points. There's really no world where that happens. And so let's start having conversations today and figure out like, hey, just so that I can help when it comes time. Do you have any plans in the near future, maybe a year from now, to buy a rental property or buy your first house or to sell your home? Just want to make sure that if anything comes up, that I can be your person, right? Like start having those conversations because you might find out that they have some number in their head. They're like, when interest rates come down, you're like, awesome. What's that percentage? And they don't know the percentage, but maybe they have a dollar amount in their head. And while we're not date the rate, marry the home people, because that's going to get you in hot water, what we do know is there is definitely some products right now in the form of concessions that we can negotiate for our people to get them into the home right now before prices go up next year, because we know that's still happening. Home prices in Colorado are expected between anywhere between 2 and 3% this year, going up. Even with all the inventory, we're still seeing prices go up. I would say that our inventory issue right now that we're having is more that we have more overpriced homes that are not priced appropriately. And we have very high priced homes in Colorado in the $2 million mark, $3 million mark that take a little bit longer to move generally already. And so that's what's also inflating. You don't find $300,000 houses that are sitting in the market. Those are gone, right? We're not seeing any of that. These are higher priced homes is what's making up of the inventory that's sitting in Colorado right now. All right, let's look at Altos data. So we're looking at a triple lot two because that's what we do. And when we're looking at this thing, here we go. We're seeing the median list price go down. All right, so median list price dropped below $600,000 now. This is affected by inventory. I think what we need to keep in mind is this, though. People are not losing money. Yes, if you bought last year at a peak and you're trying to sell right now, yes, you could lose money. But most of these people that have been in their home for 5+ years, they have equity in their home. Even if prices go down, they're still making money. And the people that bought their home in the early 2000s up to like 2000, what maybe the 1990s, they have huge equity in their homes. And so that's what we have to keep in mind when we're having these conversations is no one's losing money on their houses right now. Yes, maybe if you bought at the height of a market, maybe, yet the majority of people right now, if they were to sell their home, they're making money. When we're looking at this thing, average days on market, this has come down pretty significantly too. Remember, back in the end of the week in January, we were talking about 163 days on market. Now we're down to 104. The reason is people are pricing their homes appropriately and after some price drops. But the people that are really pricing their home appropriately, right, median, because we're really just taking out all the outliers and we're making our way into the middle, 28 days. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if we look at the homes around you and we price your home appropriately, which means that you can't be the second cheapest home. So if we position ourselves appropriately with what the inventory is looking like in our area, we have a better chance to sell your home in 1 month versus three. 3 months if we have to do a price cut too, because look at this, price decreases 40%. 40% of all homes in a triple lot two are taking a price cut. So the price cut is the people that are putting their home over what the market value is, the fair market value, and they're lasting 2 months longer. And during that 2 month time period, they're most likely taking a price cut. We don't ever want to chase the market. The market fluctuates. So what we want to do is look around us and see what is on the market, how long they've been sitting, and then figure out what our price looks like from there. Price increases 17%. Again, this number doesn't excite me. This is phase two, phase three, phase four, just new builds coming online. And what they've done is it's just the same model home, and then they've just increased the price in the MLS to say, hey, we're in a different phase. They cost more for location. You're relisted. Guys, have spiked a little bit. So what we're seeing is that people are going through their contingencies, and they're not coming to an agreement, and they're walking away. So we don't know what truly causes this, but we know there's, many, many factors. And so again, that's where we have to be the voice of reason, making sure that we're having the conversations, figuring out what the motivations are, and be the problem solvers. That's why we get hired. We're not getting hired to put in the MLS. Your consumers can do that. We're not necessarily even getting hired to negotiate the contracts. At the end of the day, a lawyer could do that, right? We are really here to be the experts in real estate and be the problem solvers for our people to stop this number. This is stupid. 17% of homes being relisted. That means that the buyer's agent and the seller's agent weren't problem solvers and the deal fell apart. So we need to be making sure that we're going through and we're looking at it from all angles. And guess what? You're in a brokerage of 120 agents and you have two managing brokers within Bob and within Kevin that have seen a lot of deals to where you can pick up the phone, call them and say, hey, we're running into this issue. What do you suggest? And then we can take that back to our clients and help them. Inventory, it's ranking it at an 18. Median rent has gone down a little bit, not significantly, from 3,200 down to 3,000. Market action score, they're giving it a 46. We're still in a seller's market, right? We are, even with the inventory of what it looks like and the prices coming down, we still do not have enough inventory to sustain the demand for the people either moving into Colorado, specifically 8 triple lot 2, or the people that are looking to purchase homes.